Hello and welcome. Today I'm excited to speak with composer Michael Gandolfi on his Lowell songs, which will be premiered at the upcoming Collage New Music Concert on May 4th. Michael, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, your Lowell songs is a collection of four songs that brings together your music and the poetry of Amy Lowell. So, I took a brief look at the score from the bell-like transforming chords in the opening of the first song, A Blockhead, to the fluttering, rustling accompaniment in the second song, At Night. I can already imagine the many different scenes we'll be experiencing through these four songs. So, what drew you to Amy Lowell's poetry?
Well, a number of things. She is associated with the school of imagists, and that style of poetry is tends toward being direct and concise. It's often described as anti-romantic. However, it's not to imply that she doesn't use a lot of descriptive, words and so on, and it's not that she doesn't evoke um, rich imagery. When she does evoke imagery, just seems to appeal to me. She often makes musical references too, so obviously fits well with setting her text to music.
Well, how did you choose these four poems from her very extensive body of work?
I did a lot of reading, and I have been reading her poetry for, I guess, a couple of decades now, I'd say. And she is. I should mention another reason I was attracted to her work is she lived locally, lived in the Boston area, Cambridge area, and I think we share a lot of just from being from the same earth, so to speak. We have a lot in common. Actually, at first I'd only set the first three in the set, and Grotesque came almost as an afterthought. It was mainly because I felt that I mean the third poem is it ends in such a, I want to say, it's just kind of a downer. It's kind of depressing, and um, which is, there's nothing wrong with ending a piece like that, but I just felt like, maybe it'd be nice to have a different kind of ending. And it turns out that, I mean, my reading of Grotesque, the last poem, is that it's almost like the opposite of From One Who Stays, because From One Who Stays is about loss. It's about um, mourning. I was reading into it too, sort of an intense love that must have been there for this person or this object or this thing or whatever. And now it's gone. And, I think it's fair to say we've all experienced these emotions when we've lost someone or lost something dear to us. And she captures that so beautifully in this poem. And then on the kind of the flip side, if you see my reasoning in a moment here, Grotesque it's almost like the response to a breakup. So it's sort of the opposite of, feeling the loss of, somebody close to you. Now it's also about loss, but it's about an intense reaction against that loss.
From what you mentioned earlier, Lowell often references music in her poem. So immediately I see in the poem At Night, where it says a deep voiced song of rushing cadences and crashing intervals. So, how do her music references might inspire your text setting?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one because for those references you point out. So I went crazy with these little sort of 5/1 cadences, all, helter skelter, when that text is sung, and crashing intervals. I got into this sort of angular, it's very much a tone painting, sort of literal interpretation of musical interpretation of those words. Also, I felt that in this poem, At Night, which is what we're the second poem in the setting, I want to say expressionist. It might not be quite the right word, but let's just say a veiled reference to an expressionist kind of attitude, just at the opening. And so I musically found myself in that place. And then it moves away from that when the references are made about the cadences and the crashing intervals. And so I find myself working with two different harmonic worlds, so to speak, in this poem, which seem to fit the different moods of that are evident in the flow of the words.
You talked about the synthesis of two different kinds of musical language. I watched your interview with David Hoos for Collage a couple of years ago, and it was fascinating to hear that your journey as a musician went from improv jazz to under the influence of the Second Viennese School, so more expressionist languages, and back to jazz and some more influence from tonal classical music. And your beautiful orchestral pieces, Points of Departure and The Garden of Cosmic Speculation, and they are, besides their fine orchestration, have such distinct languages. So, how do you navigate through all these different influences when you compose and maintaining your sense of originality?
First, I would just say that I feel as an American composer that all of what you said is really an expression of America in whole. The melting pot, the mixing of cultures, and in the best sense. I'm not going to get into what's going on today in our world, but in the best sense, this country is a welcoming country to all kinds of cultures and influences. I recently discovered Samuel Barber's Capricorn Concerto. It's for flute, oboe, trumpet, and string orchestra. And it has this very kind of muscular opening, and then it goes into this. It sounds like Bartok music for strings, percussion, and celesta, the first movement, the fugue. So clearly he was channeling Bartok, and he knew, he was making no bones about it. And then I'll just go too far into this, but I'll just fast forward to the last movement of the piece that says very much like the Dumbarton Oaks of Stravinsky. Then the little light bulb went off in my head, and I said, isn't it interesting that, Bartok is all Bartok. Stravinsky is all Stravinsky. Now here's Barber, an American composer. He's got a little Bartok, a little Stravinsky. It's all Barber though, but I said, no, that's American. I mean, that's an aspect of American music and composition. It doesn't have to be that. There are plenty of American composers who walk down one avenue, maybe some of the minimalists, maybe some of the heavy duty serialists like Milton Babbitt. Like, we accept it all. We're fish swimming in the bowl of our times, right? So whatever those times are presenting to us, we're going to be inhaling and exhaling all of that stuff.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights on your music and composition. We can't wait to hear the premiere of your Lowell songs at the upcoming Collage New Music concert on May 4th.